Hello, third grade. Today what we're going to do is we're going to start cutting and gluing our positive and negative complementary collage. Last week when you were in, we did our Austin's butterfly and we focused on making drafts so that way the picture that's in front of you is going to be the one that you are the happiest with. We practice with geometric shapes, shapes with names, circles, squares, triangles. We also practice drawing organic shapes, which are shapes without names. So they could be the outline of a person, the outline of a leaf, or it could just be a blob shape for our organic. So what I did for you is I printed out your design on the colored paper that you wanted. So if you chose yellow, you should have it printed on yellow. The second piece of paper is going to be not a color that you chose, but rather the complementary color. So the complementary for yellow is purple, and we watched a video about that and talked about that before we started today. So what we're going to be doing is we are going to be cutting these shapes out and gluing them on our large square. Even though this is a really simple project, it's very important that you are going slow, taking your time, and making sure that you're understanding the steps before you start. Many kids that do this project, what they'll do is they'll guess on what's going to happen and they'll start cutting and they'll make a mistake. And the only way to fix that mistake is to go ahead and redraw the shape, recut it out, and re-glue it down. To help make sure that doesn't happen, we're only going to be doing one shape at a time. So we'll be cutting and then gluing. You can see the shapes on the light colored paper, but what you may not notice, and it might be hard to see on the camera, is on these large sheets, we actually have the guidelines for where our small square is going to sit, so that way we make sure that it's sitting right in the center of our large square. So you'll be able to see that as well. Whenever I start doing a project, the thing that I look for first is what are things that are going to be simple for me. And I see a simple shape for me to cut out, and I see our triangle, so I'm going to go ahead and start there. It's just two straight cuts. Once you have your first piece cut out, what you can do is you can go ahead and you can line up your square inside of your larger square. And you'll have your missing piece, the negative piece. And the negative space, what we're going to do is we're going to stick it in as if it were a puzzle. And what we're going to do is we're going to flip it. So now my triangle is actually making a diamond shape. With a pencil, making sure that everything is still lined up, I'm going to hold my small piece and I'm going to lightly trace around. And if you accidentally get pencil on it, you can go ahead and erase, and that's why we use pencils. But now I know exactly where I'm going to be gluing this down. We no longer need this for right now, so I'm going to move it off to the side. And before I glue this down, I need to flip it over, and what you're going to notice is you have your smaller shape on the inside. We need to cut that out before we start gluing. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get my shapes, and I'm going to double check everything because once we glue, it's kind of hard to rip it apart. So I'm going to put my smaller square, I'm going to line it back up. I am going to put my big shape, and I'm going to notice, oh, that's not the way the puzzle piece goes in, so I have it upside down, so I'll flip it. I always want to double check and make sure that everything is lining up. So now this shape fits inside. I'm going to go ahead and flip it so that it matches my drawing. And now I'll take my small piece and I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to line it up inside of my triangle, but I'm going to flip it so now I'm creating a pattern with my positive, negative space. Once it's lined up, I'll move it. I have not yet traced this shape, so I'm going to go ahead and trace it so when it's time to glue, I know where it goes. And I like to start with the easier shape. So the smaller shape to me is easier. So this is where it gets tricky. I'm lifting it, but I don't want to put glue here because this is the side that's going to be showing. So I need to flip it. I'll put it over on the cardboard or on my piece of paper because we don't want to get glue all over the project. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to apply glue to this shape. So we're going to use glue sticks today. If the glue stick is not showing, you can twist until you see it, but please don't go all the way out. If we go all the way out, when we try to put the cap on, glue gets in the cap. If you push too hard, this piece could actually fall off and would need to go in the garbage. So as long as you can see the glue sticking out of the top, you'll be fine. Anytime we glue around a shape, the most important part is around the outside edges. We really want to make sure that those edges have lots of glue to make sure that it's not popping off. Once we have glue, we know we can flip it, and it's a matter of going to where we trace the shape and lightly placing it down. Again, if we do it lightly, right now, if I made a mistake or I need to move it left or right, it's pretty easy to lift and move, okay? Once it's lined up, now we want to make sure it's not going anywhere. So now I'll go ahead and I'll push down. And I'll rub around the edges to make sure that it's not going to pop off. And then I can do the fingernail check where I just go lightly around the sides. And if anything's sticking up, I can go ahead, do a little glue underneath, push it back down, make sure that it's ready. So once we have one of our pieces glued down, we'll go ahead and we'll line up our second piece. We'll double check to make sure that you outlined it with pencil. If you didn't line it up with pencil, make sure you grab a pencil, trace around. That way when you bring it back, you'll know exactly where to glue it. Just like this first piece, I want to lift it. We don't want glue on this front side, so now I'm going to flip it. Now that it's flipped, I'll go over to my cardboard so that I'm not getting glue all over my project. I'll grab my glue stick, I'll apply glue. Again, focusing on the edges. These shapes are pretty small, so it's okay to glue the entire piece. And once we have glue, we can pick it up. We want to flip it. And we're going to go ahead and line it up very carefully and not pushing down hard with our pencil marks. So again, it's down pretty light right now. If I needed to, I could definitely pick it up and move it left or right. Once you have it in the spot, push and hold. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I didn't do the bottom, so I'll move my hand down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I like to do things twice to make them nice. So I'm going to take my finger and I'm just going to rub around the edges because I do not want any of this coming off while it's hanging up in our art show in our hallways. So we have one of our 4 pieces done. All we're going to do is we're going to repeat the same process. I'm going to put my square back. I'm going to line it up. Again, we're going to continue going around. I always like to just keep going with the simpler shapes, so I'm actually just going to come clockwise to 6 o'clock and I'm going to do this guy. And again, don't cut all of these pieces all out at once, because if they fall on the floor or another student grabs them, they might accidentally glue your pieces on to their project.